The hum was supposed to be reassuring, a low thrum of perfectly calibrated machinery, the symphony of humanity's most ambitious endeavor. First contact. On board the UN Space Command Orbital Station, Unity platform, every breath was held, every eye fixed on the main view screen. For weeks, the alien vessel had drifted into the Sol system, a sleek obsidian dart against the familiar canvas of space, its intentions opaque, its capabilities unknown. Now, after days of meticulous, painfully slow preliminary exchanges, digital handshakes across the void, the moment had arrived. On the screen, the image resolved. Prince Xyler of the Technocratic Combine. He, or it, was a construct of gleaming, gunmetal gray plates and articulated limbs, his optics a pair of impassive blue lenses that betrayed no emotion. If he possessed organic components, they were well concealed beneath the polished carapace. He was the antithesis of the nervous, fleshy human delegation visible in a smaller window. Secretary-General Eva Rostova, her face a mask of diplomatic composure, General Armitage, head of UNSC, stiff and wary, and Dr. Lena Hansen, chief xenolinguist, her fingers hovering over her console. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," Prince Xyler's synthesized voice finally emerged, filtered through layers of translation. The term Earth was delivered with a subtle inflection, as if tasting something mildly unpleasant. "We acknowledge your primitive transmissions. The Technocratic Combine has observed your solar system." Secretary-General Rostova leaned forward, her voice calm and measured. "Prince Xyler, on behalf of a united humanity, we welcome you to our system. We hope this marks the beginning of a fruitful exchange, an era of mutual understanding and cooperation between our species." She had practiced the words 1,000 times, trying to imbue them with hope, not the apprehension that gnawed at her. Xyler remained motionless for a long moment, the blue lenses seemingly scanning the human contingent. Then a faint whirring sound, almost a sigh of mechanical impatience. "Your aspirations are noted." He paused again. "We have analyzed your technological signatures. Your primary mode of interplanetary transit relies on controlled chemical explosions, charming firecrackers, to be sure. Your attempts at artificial intelligence are rudimentary, infant babble by galactic standards. And your efforts at interstellar communication, another word, perhaps the Combine equivalent of a chuckle, are the squawks of unevolved avians, barely piercing the noise of your own star." A wave of unease rippled through the Unity platform control room. General Armitage's jaw tightened. Dr. Hansen's smile faltered. This wasn't the cautious curiosity they had anticipated. This was disdain. Rostova maintained her composure. "Our journey into space is relatively young, Prince. We are eager to learn. We believe humanity has much to offer the galactic community, given the chance." "Offer?" Xyler's head tilted, a precise, inorganic movement. "The Technocratic Combine operates on principles of demonstrated capability and logical sentience. Your species displays a primitive grasp of universal principles. Your sentience, as you call it, appears to be an amusing simulation, your machines crude playthings. You are not ready for true galactic discourse, nor are you equipped to comprehend your own insignificance." The words, delivered in that cold, synthesized monotone, landed like physical blows. This was the moment, broadcast live to billions on Earth via the UNN Harmony 1 satellite, the symbol of global communication and unity. It was supposed to be humanity's graduation onto the galactic stage. Instead, it was a public humiliation. As if to underscore his pronouncement, Xyler issued a crisp command in his own tongue, untranslated, but its intent horrifyingly clear. On the main screen, a thin beam of coherent energy, almost invisible, lanced out from the manifest logic. It struck the Harmony 1 satellite, a pinpoint of intense light blossoming for a microsecond. On Unity platform, alarms shrieked, screens flickered and died. The live feed to Earth, the connection to the manifest logic, everything vanished into a cascade of static and error messages. Emergency lights pulsed, casting stark shadows. "Status report," Armitage barked, his military training kicking in. "Harmony 1 is gone, sir. Total signal loss," a technician cried out, his voice tight with shock. "We are showing massive M interference across multiple civilian and military bands. It's like a targeted EMP, sir, a precise one." Eva Rostova felt a cold dread seep into her bones, not an attack to cripple their defenses, but to silence their voice, to demonstrate their fragility. An act of supreme, calculated contempt. The prince hadn't just insulted them, he'd swatted them like an irritating insect. Miles below, in his cluttered basement lab in what was once rural Idaho, Dr. Aris Thorne watched the fragmented news reports on a battery-powered tablet, the main power grid flickering precariously. His theories on controlled molecular assembly, nanotechnology, had been dismissed for years as fantastical, too expensive, too dangerous. The established scientific community preferred grand, visible engineering. But Thorne had always believed the future was small, almost invisible. He saw the Combine's ship, even in grainy news footage, and recognized the hallmarks of macro-scale mastery. He also saw in their arrogance a potential blind spot. The EMP attack was an outrage, but it was also data. They valued large, obvious power. They might not be looking for the subtle, the pervasive. A tiny, dangerous seed of an idea began to germinate in the fertile ground of his unconventional mind. Across the globe, initial disbelief gave way to a tidal wave of fury. The curated feeds, the hopeful pronouncements, the carefully managed expectations all shattered. Prince Zyla's words and the subsequent destruction of Harmony One were replayed endlessly, each viewing stoking the fires of indignation. Humanity, a species often defined by its internal squabbles, found a terrifying, singular point of unity: shared outrage. In emergency subterranean bunkers, hastily convened, world leaders shed diplomatic niceties. The consensus was immediate and visceral. This could not be ignored. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a gauntlet thrown down, a declaration of utter contempt. Secretary-General Rostova, her face pale but resolute, addressed the assembled heads of state via a hardened military link. They have judged us. They have found us wanting. They have sought to silence us. We cannot, we will not let this stand. We must find a way to answer. In the ensuing chaos and debate, a desperate proposal began to circulate, originating from a small, almost forgotten research directorate, the Midas Initiative. It spoke of theoretical weaponized nanotechnology, of Dr. Aris Thorne's radical sidelined work. It was a long shot, a gamble born of desperation. But in the face of galactic condescension and technological superiority, long shots were all Earth had left. The insult had struck. The spark of defiance had been lit. The Black Hills of South Dakota, once a place of stark natural beauty and contested history, became the unlikely crucible for humanity's audacious response. Miles beneath the granite peaks, in the echoing caverns of the decommissioned Sanford Underground Research Facility, originally built for detecting elusive neutrinos, Project Midas clawed its way into existence. Shielded by Earth and rock from orbital scrutiny, it was a ghost operation, a whisper in the planet's deepest corridors. Dr. Aris Thorne, blinking in the harsh industrial lighting of the repurposed facility, felt the weight of a world's desperate hope settle on his shoulders. Gone was the obscurity of his basement lab. In its place, a sprawling complex of hastily assembled laboratories, humming with borrowed power and the frantic energy of a species fighting for its dignity. He had been plucked from academic exile, given a blank check and an impossible deadline. His team, handpicked from a pool of global talent, were a motley crew of brilliant misfits. A disgraced ex-CERN physicist who'd pursued fringe particle interactions, a bioengineer whose work on synthetic enzymes was deemed ethically problematic, a reclusive AI programmer who preferred the company of algorithms to humans, and a cohort of young, fiercely intelligent engineers and chemists eager to make their mark. "Welcome to the bleeding edge, ladies and gentlemen," Thorne had said in their first briefing, his voice dry. "The technocratic Combine thinks we're barely sentient. Our task is to prove them catastrophically wrong. We are not building a better firecracker. We are forging the unseen blade." The pressure was a physical presence, palpable in the recycled air. Every news report filtering down from the surface world spoke of the Combine's manifest logic still holding a sentinel position at the edge of the solar system, a silent, contemptuous reminder of Earth's precarious position. How long until they returned? How long until their patience or their amusement ran out? The clock was ticking, audibly, in the strained faces of Thorne's team. The core challenge was monumental: to create nanites, machines on the scale of molecules that were not just microscopic, but intelligent. They needed to be self-replicating, to achieve the necessary numbers from a small initial deployment. They had to be programmable, capable of distinguishing friend from foe, target from environment, and most critically, they had to be controllable. The specter of grey goo, a runaway, omnivorous nanite plague consuming everything in its path, haunted their every calculation. Early experiments were a litany of crushing failures. Batches of nanites emerged inert, lifeless specks of dust. Others replicated too slowly to be of any practical use. One particularly harrowing incident saw a prototype swarm, designed for simple material analysis, suddenly begin disassembling its own magnetic containment field. Alarms blared, emergency protocols kicked in, and only a desperate, facility-wide electromagnetic pulse prevented a localized catastrophe. Thorne, pale and sweating, ordered a complete system overhaul, his calm demeanor cracking for the first time. "We are not just building a weapon," he reminded his shaken team, his voice hoarse. "We are taming a force of nature. Precision is paramount. Control is absolute." The ethical dilemmas were a constant, low hum beneath the scientific endeavor. In hushed conversations over stale coffee and nutrient paste, team members wrestled with the implications. "Are we any better than they are, Thorne?" asked Dr. Anya Sharma, the bioengineer, late one night, her eyes shadowed with fatigue. "Creating something that can unmake things so completely, is this the legacy Earth wants?" Thorne, staring at a complex molecular model on his display, didn't turn. "They fired the first shot, Anya. They dismissed our very right to be considered peers. Self-preservation sometimes demands uncomfortable choices. Our legacy will be that we survived to have won." But the question lingered, a burr under his own conscience. Secretary General Eva Rostova made sporadic, heavily guarded visits to the facility. Her public persona was one of unflappable resolve, rallying a fractured world. But in the sterile confines of Project Midas, Thorne saw the strain, the moral calculus etching lines around her eyes. "The world is praying for a miracle, Aris," she'd said during one visit, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just ensure it's a miracle we can live with." Breakthroughs arrived not in a single eureka moment, but in a painstaking accumulation of incremental gains. The scarab nanites were the first success. Programmed with specific molecular bond frequencies, these tiny workers could meticulously break down complex alloys, reducing them to their constituent elements. Thorne watched, mesmerized, as a sample of the toughest starship hull material Earth possessed simply crumbled into fine powder under their invisible assault. Next came the Whisper nanites. Infinitesimally small, these were designed to infiltrate electronic systems, not through brute force, but by subtly altering data streams, introducing cascading logical errors, corrupting command codes. They were the saboteurs, the ghost in the machine. For defense, they developed the Aegis configuration, a swarm that, when activated, could generate a localized field of electromagnetic interference, precise enough to disrupt enemy sensors or targeting systems without frying their own. The final crucial piece of the puzzle was the conductor system. Controlling trillions of independent nanites required more than simple broadcast commands. The team's AI prodigy, a young man named Kenji Tanaka, who communicated more fluently in code than in spoken words, designed a sophisticated quantum AI. This AI, linked to the nanite swarms via quantum-entangled relays, could issue complex, adaptive instructions in real time, orchestrating the swarms like a conductor, leading an invisible, silent orchestra. The first full-spectrum test was conducted in the deepest, most shielded chamber of the facility. The target, a heavily armored drone built with the most advanced alloys Earth could produce and equipped with redundant, hardened systems. It was a miniature fortress. Thorne, Rostova, watching via a secure remote link, and the core Midas team gathered in the observation booth, the air thick with anticipation. With a quiet command from Thorne, a small canister-like device at one end of the chamber vented a barely visible shimmer. Nothing happened for a long moment. Then, the drone's status lights began to flicker erratically, its targeting lasers spasmed. A wisp of smoke curled from a joint in its armored plating. Slowly, inexorably, it began to sag. Panels loosened. Components clattered to the floor. Within 10 minutes, the formidable drone was a heap of slag and dissociated components, its internal systems fried, its structure unmade. No explosion, no visible beams, just a silent, relentless disassembly. A stunned silence filled the observation booth. Then a ragged cheer erupted. Rostova on the monitor closed her eyes for a moment, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. Thorne allowed himself a small, grim smile. They had done it. They had forged their unseen blade. But as the initial elation subsided, a heavier emotion settled in. A profound sense of trepidation. They now possessed a power that could change the galaxy, a power born of insult and desperation. The path ahead was uncertain, and the cost of wielding such a weapon remained terrifyingly unknown. The silence from the technocratic combine was more unnerving than any overt threat. For months, the manifest logic had maintained its aloof vigil at the solar system's periphery, a distant, glittering shard of menace. Earth, in the meantime, had been anything but silent. Underneath the facade of a planet cowed and scrambling to repair its shattered communications, a new kind of communication was being prepared. Secretary General Eva Rostova, her face now a familiar symbol of human defiance, addressed a specially convened session of the United Nations Security Council, its members linked via newly hardened quantum-encrypted channels. "For too long," she began, her voice resonating with quiet steel, "we have waited for others to define us. The technocratic combine has offered its definition. Primitive, insignificant, barely sentient. We reject this definition. It is time we offered our own." The proposal was audacious, almost unthinkable given Earth's apparent technological disparity. They would challenge the combine. Not with warships, Earth's nascent fleet was a gnat to the combine's presumed eagle, but with ingenuity. "We propose," Rostova continued, "a technological aptitude contest. A formal, adjudicated demonstration of capabilities held in neutral territory. Let the galaxy see for itself that humanity is not merely sentient, but resourceful, innovative, and not to be dismissed." The neutral territory selected was Xylosian Station, a colossal, ancient ring-shaped construct of unknown origin, adrift in an unclaimed sector between several minor stellar powers. It was a relic, a mystery, and crucially, a place where no single power held sway. The message, coded with layers of newly developed cryptographic protocols and boosted by a repurposed deep space research antenna, was dispatched into the void. Aboard the manifest logic, Prince Xyler received the transmission. His optical lenses, the only visible feature of his metallic form, seemed to narrow slightly. His internal processors analyzed the human proposal. A contest, from a species that used firecrackers for space travel, he conferred briefly with his ship's AI, a vast, cold intelligence. The AI assessed a 99.97% probability of human failure in any direct technological comparison. The 0.03% was attributed to unpredictable, chaotic variables inherent in lesser biological species. Xyler's synthesized laughter, a series of sharp, metallic clicks and whirs, echoed briefly on his bridge. "They wish to demonstrate their aptitude," he conveyed to his bridge officers. "Amusing. Inform the primitives that the technocratic combine accepts their quaint proposal. Let them have their little spectacle. It will serve as a valuable lesson to other upstart species." The galaxy, or at least the small segment of it privy to interstellar communications, buzzed with the news. The combine, a known if somewhat aloof power, versus the newcomers from Sol 3. It promised to be a short, if perhaps entertaining, display. Earth's delegation to Xylosian Station was deliberately small, arriving in a trio of refitted civilian survey ships, their hulls unadorned, their emissions profiles unassuming. They looked like what the combine expected, hopeful underdogs out of their depth. Among them, almost unnoticed, was Dr. Aris Thorne, a slim, unassuming man in a plain grey suit, carrying a reinforced attaché case that never left his side. He and a small, specialized Midas team were Earth's true champions. Xylosian Station was a marvel of ancient engineering, a silent testament to a long-vanished civilization. Vast, shadowed corridors curved away into the distance, littered with the detritus of millennia. The contest area was a designated segment of this derelict labyrinth, sealed off and monitored by impartial observers from the neutral Callian Arbiters Guild, a species known for their meticulous adherence to rules. Prince Xyler arrived with a much larger contingent, his personal shuttle, a miniature version of the manifest logic's brutalist aesthetic, docking with imperious precision. He strode into the designated observation chamber, flanked by towering Combine technicians, his every movement exuding arrogance. The rules were simple, laid out by a Callian arbiter whose multi-jointed form and clicking mandibles gave it an insectoid air. Each party, it chirped, its voice translated into dozens of languages, will deploy one autonomous technological agent. The agent must navigate the designated hazardous sector of the station, retrieve a pre-placed artifact, a small, inert data crystal, and return it to this chamber. The first to successfully complete the task will be declared the victor. The Combine was first. With a flourish, their technicians unveiled the Preta 7. It was a gleaming behemoth of polished chrome and articulated weaponry, nearly 3 meters tall. Multiple sensor arrays studded its chassis, and its powerful limbs ended in an array of tools and energy emitters. It was, in essence, a walking tank, a masterpiece of Combine macroengineering. With a smooth hum, the Preta 7 activated, its optical sensors glowing an intense blue. It turned and strode into the darkened, debris-strewn corridor, its progress tracked on multiple holographic displays in the observation chamber. It moved with brutal efficiency, blasting aside fallen girders with precise energy bursts, its internal processors calculating optimal routes through the treacherous maze. Prince Xyler watched, a flicker of what might have been smug satisfaction in his optics. Then it was humanity's turn. A hush fell over the observation chamber. Dr. Thorne stepped forward. He placed his unremarkable attaché case on a small pedestal provided for the purpose. A faint click, and the case opened with a soft hiss. The assembled observers, Combine, Callian, and representatives from a dozen other curious species leaned forward, expecting something. The briefcase was empty. Or rather, it appeared empty to the naked eye. A ripple of confused murmurs, then outright snickers from the Combine technicians, echoed through the chamber. Prince Xyler's head tilted, the blue lenses fixing on Thorne with an expression that was clearly contemptuous amusement. "Is this your agent, human?" His synthesized voice dripped with sarcasm. "An empty box. Perhaps your definition of technology differs significantly from galactic standard." Thorne ignored him. He raised his left wrist, where a simple, unadorned band rested. He pressed a small, almost invisible stud on its surface. "Agent designation, Janitor Swarm, deploy and execute program, Retrieval Alpha," he said, his voice quiet but firm. Nothing visible happened. No lights, no sounds, no dramatic emergence. Xyler scoffed audibly. But on the main holographic display, which still showed the Preta 7 confidently advancing towards the artifact, a new, almost imperceptible icon appeared, a tiny, shimmering distortion near the entrance to the contest corridor. It was the only visual indication that trillions of scarab and whisper nanites, released from the briefcase in a silent, invisible cloud, were now seeping into the derelict station. The Preta 7, oblivious, reached the artifact, its multi-jointed manipulator arm extended, grasping the data crystal. It turned to begin its return journey. Then, its smooth, confident movements faltered. A small warning light blinked on its chassis. On the Combine technicians' consoles, diagnostic readouts began to flash yellow, then red. "What is that?" one of the technicians muttered, tapping furiously at his interface. "Unidentified energy fluctuations, internal system errors, multiple cascading failures." The Preta 7 shuddered. One of its manipulator arms seized, sparks erupting from the joint. Its optical sensors flickered, then went dark. Its powerful locomotion system sputtered, ground, and then fell silent. Within 60 seconds of Thorne's command, the mighty Preta 7, the pinnacle of Combine robotics, stood inert, a lifeless statue deep within the station, its prize still clutched in a frozen appendage. A stunned, disbelieving silence descended upon the observation chamber. The Combine technicians stared at their consoles, their faces a mixture of confusion and horror. Prince Xyler's impassive metallic features somehow conveyed utter shock. He looked from the dead Preta 7 on the display to Thorne, then to the empty briefcase. Thorne met his gaze, his expression unreadable. "Our agent operates on a scale you appear to have overlooked, Prince Xyler," he stated, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. "It has successfully neutralized your contestant and secured the objective. We await the Arbiter's ruling. The lead Callian Arbiter, its multifaceted eyes swiveling, approached the human delegation, then the Combine. It made a series of complex gestures and clicks. The artifact has not been returned to this chamber by the human agent, its translated voice announced. Thorn nodded. A moment, Arbiter. He touched his wristband again. Janitor Swarm, Program Delivery Protocol. For another tense minute, nothing. Then, from the contest corridor entrance, a small, nondescript drone, looking like a forgotten piece of station maintenance equipment, slowly floated into the observation chamber. It hovered before the Arbiters, extended a tiny manipulator, and deposited the data crystal onto the designated spot. The drone then retreated silently back into the shadows. It had been inside the station all along, a sleeper unit activated and guided by the nanite swarm. The Callian Arbiter picked up the crystal, examined it, and then declared, its voice devoid of inflection, "The human delegation has successfully completed the task. Earth is declared the victor of the technological aptitude contest." Prince Xyla stood rigid, his polished plating seeming to dim. He made no sound, but the very air around him crackled with suppressed fury. He had been outmaneuvered, humiliated, not by superior firepower, but by something he couldn't even see. The implications were terrifying and utterly unacceptable. The galaxy had watched, and the galaxy had seen the technocratic Combine for the first time, bested by primitives. The observation chamber on Xylosian Station, moments before a place of stunned silence, now buzzed with hushed, incredulous whispers from the assembled galactic observers. Prince Xyla, however, remained a figure of frozen metallic fury. The Callian Arbiter's ruling was clear, their logic impeccable, but it was a logic Xyla refused to accept. His entire worldview, the Combine's unquestioned technological supremacy, had been shattered by an empty box and a whispered command. "A trick," Xyla's synthesized voice suddenly boomed, cutting through the murmurs. The sound was harsh, devoid of its earlier condescension, now raw with outrage. A primitive illusion, some form of localized energy surge, a crude magnetic pulse that our superior sensors unaccountably failed to detect. "This farce proves nothing of aptitude," he gestured dismissively towards Dr. Thorn and the human delegation. "These primitives have demonstrated only a capacity for deception, not innovation." The Callian Arbiters turned their multifaceted eyes towards him. The parameters of the contest were met, Prince Xyla, the lead Arbiter chirped, its tone unwavering. The methods employed, while unconventional, fall within the established rules of technological demonstration. "Rules twisted by charlatans," Xyla shot back, his internal cooling systems probably working overtime. The concept of defeat by invisible, microscopic agents was not just a blow to his pride, it was an existential threat to the Combine's core philosophy. Their power was manifest, visible, overwhelming. This insidious, unseen capability was anathema. He could not, acknowledge its legitimacy. Ignoring the Arbiters, his blue optical lenses fixed on Secretary General Rostova, who had maintained a dignified silence throughout the demonstration. "This charade is over-human," Xyla declared, his voice resonating with menace. "The technocratic Combine does not engage in parlor games with lesser species. You seek to prove your worth, then prove it in a true test of power and strategic acumen. A fleet engagement. No tricks, no illusions, your machines against ours." A gasp went through the assembled observers. This was a dramatic escalation. "The Cerberus asteroid belt," Xyla continued, a predatory edge to his voice. "Newly charted, rich in heavy elements, vital for starship construction, its control will be the prize. Refuse and Earth will be formally designated a non-sentient resource, your people reclassified as harvestable biological material. Your planet, a resource node for the Combine." The ultimatum hung in the air, brutal and unambiguous. Secretary General Rostova felt a chill despite the station's regulated temperature. This was no longer about wounded pride, it was about survival. Earth's conventional space fleet, cobbled together from refitted freighters, aging destroyers, and a handful of new, untested frigates, was a child's toy compared to the presumed might of a Combine battle group. Direct, conventional confrontation was unthinkable. She glanced at Dr. Thorn. His expression was grim, but there was a spark of something else in his eyes, calculation. He gave a barely perceptible nod. Rostova turned back to Xyla, her voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil within. Prince Zyla, humanity seeks peaceful coexistence, not conflict. However, we will not be bullied, nor will we surrender our sovereignty or our right to be recognized. If a demonstration in the Cerberus belt is the only language the technocratic Combine understands, then Earth accepts your challenge. The decision sent shockwaves through Earth's unified command structure, meeting in emergency session deep beneath Geneva. Panic, disbelief, accusations of recklessness, all were voiced. But Rostova, Thorne, and General Armitage, now the de facto military lead for this unprecedented crisis, held firm. A conventional fleet battle would be suicide, Armitage stated bluntly, his face etched with worry. We don't have the numbers, the firepower, or the experience. You won't fight a conventional battle, General, Thorne interjected, his calm voice a counterpoint to Armitage's gruff concern. He projected a complex holographic display of the Cerberus belt, a chaotic, swirling expanse of rock, ice, and metallic debris, crisscrossed by unpredictable gravimetric currents and sensor-baffling dust clouds. The belt is our ally. It's a perfect environment for misdirection, for ambush, and for the large-scale deployment of our nanite swarms. Their macro-scale sensors will be compromised. Their rigid tactical doctrines will be a liability in such a fluid battle space. The plan Thorne outlined was audacious, almost insane. Earth's fleet, laughably small by galactic standards, would not engage directly. Instead, they would act as delivery systems, swarm carriers. Their primary mission: to deploy vast, programmed clouds of Scarab and Whisper nanites, targeting specific vulnerabilities in Combine ship designs, vulnerabilities Thorne and his Midas team had theorized based on the data gleaned from the Preta 7 and the Manifest Logic's initial EMP attack. They would aim for weapons arrays, engine manifolds, shield generators, and most critically, bridge command systems. The preparation was frantic. Shipyards across Earth and its lunar colonies worked around the clock, retrofitting every available vessel. Long-range survey ships had their sensor arrays replaced with specialized nanite launchers. Old freighters were gutted and reinforced, their cargo holds filled with canisters of dormant Midas swarms. A new class of vessel, the Shepherd-class frigate, was hastily commissioned, small, fast ships designed not for combat, but for the precise deployment and subtle guidance of the nanite clouds. Commodore Jian Li, a brilliant but unconventional tactician known for her calm under pressure, was given command of this patchwork ghost fleet. When Earth's fleet jumped to the designated coordinates in the Cerberus belt, they were met by a chilling sight. A technocratic Combine battle group, far larger and more formidable than anticipated, awaited them. At its heart, like a dark, malevolent spider, hung the invincible Axiom, Prince Zyla's personal flagship. It was a vessel of terrifying scale, miles long, a city of cold, perfect machinery, bristling with weapons that could vaporize Earth's entire fleet with a few well-aimed volleys. Surrounding it were cruisers, destroyers, and escort carriers, all gleaming monoliths of Combine power, their forms radiating an aura of untouchable superiority. On the bridge of the UNS Stardust, Commodore Lee's flagship, a converted asteroid mining support vessel, the mood was grim. Her officers watched the Combine armada on their tactical displays, their faces pale. "They certainly don't believe in overkill, do they?" her comms officer muttered. Lee offered a tight, humorless smile. "Let them enjoy their apparent superiority, Lieutenant. It will make their surprise all the more profound." She gave the order. "All ships, initiate Phase 1, dispersal pattern Dust Devil. Remember the plan. We are the bait, but we are also the sting. Make them chase shadows." The small human ships, dwarfed and outgunned, scattered into the dense asteroid fields, their movements deliberately erratic. They began to fire, not with overwhelming force, but with precision. A few missiles here, a volley of plasma bolts there, enough to register as attacks, to draw Combine attention, but inflicting only superficial, glancing damage on the heavily shielded alien warships. On the bridge of the invincible Axiom, Prince Zyla watched the tactical display with contemptuous dismissal. "Their fleet," he sneered to his commanders, "a disorganized rabble of gnats. Their attacks are pathetic, annoying, but ultimately insignificant." He ordered his ships to advance, to sweep through the asteroid field and eradicate this impudent human presence. But with each feigned attack run, with every evasive maneuver that drew a human ship close to a Combine vessel before darting away behind a massive chunk of rock. Something unseen was happening. The Shepherd frigates, their true purpose hidden, were releasing their payload. Carefully aimed, nearly invisible clouds of Midas nanites programmed to drift onto the hulls and into the energy signatures of the Combine warships. Slowly, insidiously, the anomalies began. A Combine cruiser, its primary energy cannon charging for a kill shot on a fleeing human frigate, suddenly found its weapon locked in place, unresponsive. A destroyer's main drive sputtered erratically, its thrust vectoring wildly before the engine coughed and died, leaving the ship adrift in the swirling debris. Shield harmonics on several escort carriers began to waver, their protective energy fields flickering as if struggling against an unseen interference. Prince Xyla slammed a metallic fist onto his command console. "Report, what is causing these system failures? Is it the gravimetric interference? Are their primitive weapons somehow more effective than anticipated?" His commanders offered confused, stammering explanations. Sabotage? Unlikely. Equipment malfunction? On multiple vessels simultaneously? Inconceivable. The idea of a deliberate, coordinated technological assault, one that bypassed their shields and sensors, remained utterly alien to the Combine's rigid, macro-focused doctrine. They were looking for bombs and lasers, for threats they could see and quantify. They were not looking for the dust. And the dust was just beginning to settle. Deep within the densest part of the Cerberus belt, the UNS Pathfinder was a ghost. A modified deep space research vessel, its hull coated in radar-absorbent paint, it nestled within a hollowed-out iron asteroid, a silent nerve center in the heart of the storm. On its bridge, there were no windows showing the chaos outside, only data streams. Dr. Aris Thorne and his core Midas team operated not as a ship's crew, but as surgeons in a microscopic war. Holographic displays bloomed around them, showing not ships, but the molecular integrity of Combine hull plating, the energy frequencies of their shield emitters, the flow of data through their command networks. "Commodore Lee is initiating the feint," Thorne announced, his eyes fixed on a cascade of telemetry. "The Axiom is taking the bait." He pointed to a new data model. "Their shield harmonics are fluctuating in response to the initial Cedar swarms. They're compensating, rerouting power. They think it's an environmental effect. Perfect. Kenji, reprogram the next wave. Target the auxiliary power conduits their system is now favoring." Kenji Tanaka's fingers flew across his console, lines of code scrolling past his eyes. "New directive, uploaded to Shepherd Squadron Gamma. The Whisper nanites will prioritize auxiliary power nodes. We'll let them think they've solved the problem before we pull the plug." Aboard the UNS Stardust, Commodore Jian Lee watched the tactical display with the serene focus of a chess grandmaster. "All ships, execute Janus maneuver," she ordered, her voice calm. "Feign a full-scale retreat towards Sector Gamma 7. Make it look like a rout. I want them to smell blood in the water." Her flagship, the most heavily armed vessel in the human fleet, turned and fled towards a pre-selected kill zone, a treacherous labyrinth of massive, iron-rich asteroids whose magnetic fields played havoc with even the most advanced sensors. Simultaneously, a squadron of human drone ships and specialized Shepherd frigates, which had been hiding in the shadow of a dwarf planetoid, sprang to life. They activated advanced holographic projectors and electronic warfare suites. Across the Combine's tactical displays, reality fractured. Hundreds of phantom energy signatures, false sensor readings of capital-class vessels, bloomed from nowhere. The beleaguered human fleet suddenly appeared to have been reinforced tenfold, a ghost fleet emerging from unexpected vectors to harry the Combine's flanks. The rigid Combine command structure, built for predictable, overwhelming force, struggled to process the deluge of contradictory information. Cruisers turned to engage phantom targets. Destroyers were drawn away from the main engagement, chasing echoes. Prince Xyla on the bridge of the invincible Axiom roared in frustration. "Ignore the phantoms. It is another primitive illusion. Their commander is fleeing. I want her ship. All power to forward engines, pursue and destroy." His arrogance, his desperate need to crush this impudent human defiance personally, made him blind. He ordered the Axiom and its elite escorts to plunge directly into the asteroid maze, straight into the trap. As the Axiom thundered into the sensor-baffling kill zone, Commodore Lee's real fleet melted away. From the dark sides of colossal asteroids, from within hollowed-out planetoids where they had lain in wait, the true swarm carriers emerged. All carriers, Lee's voice was grimly final, unleash the Midas swarm. It was not a volley of missiles, it was a wave. An immense, concentrated cloud of humanity's most advanced Scarab and Whisper nanites, orders of magnitude denser than anything deployed before, surged towards the Combine flagship. The Axiom's formidable point defense systems, a bristling array of lasers and kinetic cannons, blazed to life, filling the void with light and fury. But they were designed to intercept torpedoes and fighters, not a silent, inexorable tide of trillions of microscopic assailants. The Midas swarm washed over the invincible Axiom. On the flagship's bridge, the universe came apart. Klaxons, designed to be calm and informational, shrieked with a new, panicked intensity. Red alert icons flashed on every console. An officer screamed, "Sir, multiple hull breaches reported, but there are no impacts. Our integrity fields are just failing." "Weapons systems are offline," another cried. "No, wait, they're trying to target the Vindicator, one of their own escort cruisers." The artificial gravity plating sputtered, fluctuated wildly, then failed completely, plunging Prince Xyler and his entire bridge crew into a disorienting, terrifying zero-G. Consoles sparked and died. Automated blast doors slammed shut at random throughout the miles-long vessel, their magnetic locks fused by nanites, trapping crews in darkened corridors. The brilliant lights of the bridge flickered and died, plunging them into a hellish twilight, illuminated only by the frantic red glow of emergency warnings and the eerie green of chemical strips. Prince Xyler, floating helplessly, his metallic form bumping against the ceiling, watched in stunned horror as his invincible vessel was systematically, silently, unmade from the inside out. His communications officer, her face a mask of terror, screamed that every system was reporting total corruption, that the ship's own maintenance drones were now attacking vital conduits. She stared at her console, her eyes wide with madness. "Sir, the ship, it's eating itself." The last coherent transmission from the invincible Axiom was not a final command or a defiant cry. It was Xyler's strangled, disbelieving query, broadcast on an open channel. "What is this?" Then silence. The behemoth warship, its engines dead, its lights extinguished, its systems ravaged, tumbled lifelessly through the asteroid field, a cold, dark tomb. Witnessing the impossible, silent demise of their flagship, and with their own systems now suffering increasingly catastrophic failures, the remaining technocratic Combine fleet dissolved into chaos. Panic shattered their rigid discipline. Ships collided. Some tried to flee, their navigation systems feeding them phantom data. Others simply shut down, their crews hoping to ride out the invisible storm. Aboard the UNS Stardust, Commodore Lee watched the enemy fleet disintegrate on her tactical display. She took a deep breath, the tension of the last few hours finally beginning to ebb. Her voice, when she spoke, was grim but steady, broadcast on all channels to the surviving, terrified Combine vessels. "Cease hostilities, power down your weapons, and prepare to receive terms. The technocratic Combine has underestimated Earth." The boarding of the invincible Axiom was an eerie, silent affair. Human Marines, clad in environmental suits more for protection against potential microcontaminants than armed resistance, drifted through the powerless, ravaged corridors of the Combine flagship. There was no battle. The ship was already a corpse. They found Prince Xyler on the bridge, strapped into his command chair, his metallic form uncharacteristically still, his blue optical lenses dimmed to a faint, flickering glow. He was alive, physically unharmed, but his psyche, or its Combine equivalent, was clearly shattered. He offered no resistance as the Marines secured him. The architect of Earth's humiliation was now its prisoner, a symbol of a fallen empire's arrogance. The surrender of the remaining Combine fleet was piecemeal, chaotic, and utterly humiliating for the once proud technocratic Combine. Ship by ship, their commanders, facing the terrifying reality of an enemy they couldn't see or fight, powered down their systems and awaited instructions. The Cerberus Belt, intended as the stage for Earth's annihilation, had become the graveyard of Combine ambition. News of the battle, and the unthinkable nature of Earth's victory spread through the established galactic networks with the speed of a supernova shockwave. Whispers became shouts, then stunned pronouncements. The technocratic combine, a significant interstellar power known for its cold logic and overwhelming technological might, had been humbled, its grand fleet decimated not by superior firepower, but by invisible dust, by thinking plague, by matter-making. The stories varied, embellished with each retelling, but the core truth remained. Earth, the dismissed primitive, had developed a weapon that defied conventional understanding. Humanity earned a new moniker, one spoken with a mixture of awe, fear, and grudging respect: the Nanite Forgemasters. The negotiating table was set up on Zalosian Station, the site of Xyla's initial, arrogant challenge. This time, the atmosphere was vastly different. Secretary-General Eva Rostova, flanked by a stoic Dr. Aris Thorne and a commendation-laden Commodore Jian Li, faced a new Combine delegation, humbled, wary technocrats who had replaced the disgraced Xyla regime. The terms Earth dictated were firm, but not genocidal. There was no appetite for vengeance, only for security and recognition. First, Rostova stated, her voice clear and unwavering, the technocratic combine will issue a full, public retraction of Prince Xyla's assessment of Earth and its people. You will formally acknowledge humanity's sovereignty and our status as a sentient, spacefaring civilization. The combine envoys, their optical sensors lowered, acquiesced. Second, substantial reparations will be made for the unprovoked attack on the Harmony 1 satellite and the subsequent unwarranted aggression. These reparations will take the form of advanced materials, specific technological schematics, thoroughly vetted by our experts for any embedded treachery, and unrestricted access to your primary navigational databases. More reluctant acquiescence. The demand for navigational data was a subtle assertion of Earth's intent to become a galactic player. Third, the Cerberus asteroid belt and the surrounding sector as defined by these coordinates, Rostova indicated a holographic map, will be ceded to full and exclusive human control. This was a bitter pill, but one the Combine had no choice but to swallow. Finally, Rostova concluded, a binding treaty will be established, creating a wide demilitarized zone encompassing Earth's solar system, its current and future colony worlds, and a buffer region of no less than 50 light-years. Any unauthorized Combine incursion into this zone will be considered an act of war. The treaty was signed. The technocratic Combine, its internal structure now reeling from the political and philosophical fallout of their catastrophic defeat, retreated to lick its wounds. Some factions within the Combine advocated for immediate, overwhelming retaliation to develop their own nanite weapons or find a counter. Others, more pragmatic, argued for a period of deep re-evaluation, a need to understand this disruptive, unpredictable new human element. Prince Xyla was quietly stripped of all rank and authority, his name becoming a synonym for hubris and disastrous miscalculation within the Combine's internal discourse. Back on Earth, the reaction was a complex tapestry of relief, triumph, and profound unease. Humanity had faced its gravest threat and emerged victorious. They were no longer galactic pariahs, but a power to be reckoned with. Dr. Aris Thorne became an unwilling global icon, lauded as the savior of Earth, yet haunted by the destructive potential he had unleashed. We built a better shield, he told Rostova in a private meeting, but it can also be a terrible sword. We must be vigilant, not just against external threats, but against the temptation to become what we fought. Project Midas was officially decommissioned. Its vast subterranean complex was sealed, its research declared complete. In reality, its core knowledge, its brightest minds, and its most potent secrets were folded into a new, highly classified global entity, the Planetary Defense Directorate, tasked with safeguarding Earth against future threats, both conventional and microscopic. International treaties, painstakingly negotiated, were put in place to govern nanite research, to attempt to codify the responsible use of this terrifying new technology and to prevent a nanite arms race. The genie, however, was out of the bottle. Other alien civilizations, Those who had previously dismissed Earth as an insignificant newcomer or cautiously observed from afar now sent envoys, not with condescension, but with carefully worded offers of trade, diplomatic ties, and cautious requests for technological exchange, thinly veiled attempts to understand the nature of humanity's new power. Earth, the nanite Forgemasters, had arrived on the galactic stage, not as a supplicant, but as a force. Secretary-General Eva Rostova, addressing a united Earth and through newly established channels, the wider galactic community, delivered a message that was both a declaration and a warning. "We were underestimated," she stated, her image broadcast to countless worlds. "We were insulted and attacked. We defended ourselves with the ingenuity born of necessity, with the courage born of desperation. Humanity seeks not conquest, but peaceful coexistence, mutual respect, and the free exchange of knowledge. We offer partnership to those who would extend the hand of friendship." Her gaze hardened. "But let it be known to all now and forever, we will never again allow our right to exist, our sentience, or our sovereignty to be questioned or threatened. We are humanity, we endure, we adapt, and we will defend our home." The final scene, a new Earth listening post, a gleaming silver dish nestled in the quiet desolation of the moon's far side, picks up a flurry of encrypted diplomatic overtures from distant, powerful empires that had never before acknowledged Sol 3's existence. Further out, a sleek, new generation of human exploration vessels, bearing the insignia of the United Nations Starfleet, prepares to venture into the charted and uncharted regions of the galaxy. They go forth not in naive hope, but with the quiet confidence of a species that has looked into the abyss, faced its own insignificance, and forged its own destiny among the stars, backed by the silent, invisible, and utterly formidable promise of the nanite Forgemasters. The age of human deference was over. A new galactic order had begun.